Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, asarimhotep, with the Martin Delaney Center for Egyptology. This is the Mbongi, and today is Thursday, March the 24th, 2022. And we have a very special guest with us today, Brother Sean Polidore. And we're going to talk about his latest book, The Anatomy of a Book, some of his previous works, uh, what he's been doing, motivations and the like, and more when we return in just a moment. Peace. Peace and blessings. Thank each and every one of you for joining us live. And then, of course, those of you who are checking out the archives. Again, we have a special guest with us, Brother Sean Polidore, and we're going to bring him on in just a bit. But before we do that, of course, I just have a few announcements. So first and foremost, I just want to let everyone know that the One Africa Power in Unity Conference will be going on the weekend of April the 30th and May the 1st, that's Saturday and Sunday, in Detroit, Michigan, home of Slum Village and Jay Dilla, and many very prestigious progressive grassroots organizations and just African-American history that I encourage everyone to study upon. But this is going to be a very special conference. And as you know, the original One Africa Conference, Returning to the Source, was rescheduled due to some controversy. But, we have rebuilt and we are home in Detroit, and it is going to be a very powerful weekend. And so presenting there is going to be our good brother Jabari Osaze, Dr. Chike Akua, Dr. Leonard and Rosalind Jeffries, Professor Small, Dr. Susan Tata, Mfudishi Jehuti Mess, Sister Bayina Bella, Dr. Theophile Obinga, Dr. Malefe Kitty Asante, and Dr. Malana Karanga, as well as your boy, Asar Imhotep. And so it's going to be a very powerful conference. And this is a very dynamic list of elders and senior scholars. And, I'm just honored to be among this great group of individuals, and we have a lot of good information to share. So make sure that you go to hoppyfilm.com to purchase your tickets. It is an in-house live event. And so if you can make it to Detroit, I encourage everyone to go. You still need to purchase your tickets at hoppyfilm.com. But if you are unable to go, it will be live streamed. And so you can get your live stream tickets again at the address hoppyfilm.com. So it's about to go down, and I look forward to April 30th and May the 1st of this year. And on tomorrow, I will be interviewing Doctors Prince J. K. Osiri and Dr. And Dr. Paul Easterling of the Osiri University. And so this is an online university that was created by Dr. Osiri and others, and is an African-centered, masteries program, and it is going to be a very, very powerful show. I know Dr. Paul Easterling. He was at the University of Houston when I was there. He was no, he had just finished his PhD then, so he was teaching there at U of H, and so now he has partnered up with Dr. Osiri, and they are doing some big things. So I encourage everyone to tune in same time on tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern time, for that dynamic interview. And just an FYI, an announcement that at the end of the summer, I haven't decided the exact date yet, but it'll probably be like the end of July around my birthday, the 30th, because that's when time and space began on July the 30th. And the title of the text is Race and Identity in Ancient Egypt, Volume 1, Towards a Meaning for the Place Name Kemet. And so this is part 1 of a 3-part series. Volume 2 will be an edited series. And then Volume 3 will be the citations of primary source material. And so I look forward to sharing this with you, and we'll have an exact date closer to the date. And so just pay attention to the channel, or asarimhotep.com, for more information. And I do appreciate the continued support of this channel. And if you would like to further support the channel and the upcoming documentary film, you can I would encourage you to join our Patreon page, and that's patreon.com/asarimhotep. And so, as you know, we'll be going to Egypt and shooting some of the preliminary footage for a proof of concept trailer. And so we're currently trying to raise $5,000. We have just went over the $4,000 mark. So I do appreciate everyone who has indeed supported the movement, and who continue to support. So please consider, if you have not, donating to the cause. And this fall, we should have, the first, proof of concept trailer, and we'll be using that to do some bigger fundraising for the film itself. And so again, that address is patreon.com/asarimhotep. And if you want to just support the film directly, you can go to our website at Seanathan.com, and that's the address there at the bottom of the screen. So, as always, I'd like to acknowledge those of you who are in the chat room and who have made themselves known from Facebook or on YouTube. And so I want to say peace and blessings to That Good Guy and Jatoon B and Edward Nigma, or Nigma, or I'll be reading words, like they're African Bantu. So I don't know if this is Nigma or Ngima. Either way it goes, peace and blessings. Thank you for joining the conversation. Infinite Minds is in the building, and Spin Barrel and Brother Chavez H-Town is in the building. Zane Montego, thank you for joining the conversation. Everything is everything. Thank you. And he says, thank you, Asar, for this space. I appreciate it. And it's people like you that I have in mind that I want to share my personal resources in terms of networks and of very powerful minds and people, and so that they can share their experiences and information, so that we continue to empower each other. And so I thank you for supporting this space. Um, Sister Keisha is in the building. Thank you for joining us. And Ladarius Dennison is in the building. He says OG Sean is in the building. He says trying to find out. Hotep, my brother, thank you. And Sunjiata, Ata Kakra and Zombie has made it to the conversation. And Amun Min Ra Suit Atum. And we got one more, and Obeya Man. Greetings and thank you for joining. Spin Barrel is in the building. Thank you for joining. And let me get this banner off this screen. So thank each and every one of you who are watching, who have made themselves known in the chat, and those of you who just, just listening in. And, this young brother here, I've been, kind of peeping over the years and seeing what he's doing in the community. And he's doing good work. And, he's from the home state of Louisiana. So that's always a plus. And so we'll get more into his childhood and upbringing and the like. And he's very diversified. He's an Imhotep himself. He's a who would I equate that to in the modern times? A Paul Robinson in many respects. And so, we'll get to see more of that in this interview. And so, again, for those who are unaware and just joining us, we are interviewing our good brother, Sean Polidor. We're going to talk about his latest text, The Anatomy of a Book, and other texts. He's written several books, so we'll get into those as well. And just find out what he's been doing in these internet and real life streets in the community or whatnot. So without further ado, I want to bring in our good brother, Sean Polidor, aka Sean P. It is in the building. How you doing, good sir?
What's going on? What's going on, man? Good afternoon. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all for coming in, taking the time. I appreciate it. Nothing more valuable than time. So spending time with me is totally important. And I never take that lightly, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm appreciative.
I'm happy to have you here. And so for those, who are new to you, and you're new to this channel, and hopefully we'll have you back when you got some more things, because I know you're a working man and you always got something in the pot ready to be served. And so if you can, just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and education, and what it is that you do. How do you summarize what you do?
I want to first start off with paying homage, right? So I want to first say for my brother Asar, right now it's like being interviewed by Allen Iverson or Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan. Like when it comes to the scholars, you are a brother I follow for a long time. A lot of your interviews like this, a lot of your lectures and discourse in your books and things like that. So whenever I was in college, education wise, guys like yourself being so scholarly influenced me. It made me want to study harder. It made me want to write books. It made me want to do all my things I'm doing now. You guys kind of laid the groundwork for making me want to do that, right? When it comes to my childhood, like you said, born and raised, Franklin, Louisiana. It's a very small town, man. Might be population, 8,000, 9,000 people, give or take. My grandfather, long-time pastor, like 70 plus years preaching. My grandmother, who is deceased now, she was the first lady of that church for a very long time. 40-year educator. My family's real big on education. My mom right now, long-time educator. So I'm kind of from that pedigree of education. And so I went to school for psychology myself. So I got a bachelor's in psychology. I have a master's in psychology. My associate's is in business, believe it or not. And that kind of brings us up to current times, right? To kind of encapsulate everything that I do, I'm a motivational speaker for the past 14 years. That's all over Louisiana, schools, organizations, jails. I mean, you name it. The phone call come, I pride myself on answering the call. Also out of state as well. I've been to Milwaukee doing this, Florida, Texas, Atlanta, different places. Just trying to be a positive force for the community and bring something good to the table, man. So outside of that, self-published author. I've written 5 books. Number 6 on the way. It's already written. Just got to do the final finish up process on number 6. And, just being a community leader if I can help it, man. That kind of sort of encapsulates a lot of what I do in a small nutshell for time's sake.
Indeed. So let's take a step back.
Okay.
You said you got your associates in business.
Yes.
So how do we leap from business to psychology?
Easy.
Like, what was it about the study of psychology that interests you so much that you was like, let me go ahead and get this degree in this?
This is an interesting story, right? Let me show you how time changes things, the perspective. Okay. So like I said in the beginning, I started following a lot of you guys in the community back in like 2010, 2011, like the first Hidden Colors, give or take. I was in college already. When I saw Dr. Umar Johnson going in the way he was going in, that was new to me. I had never seen a black man talk about psychology and the impact of that on our community in my life. I wasn't privy to Dr. Francis Crest just yet, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Wade Novas, on and on. I didn't know them yet. I saw Dr. Umar first, like, man, I want to do that. So I started going down the rabbit hole, finding all the Umar videos I could at that time. And I changed my major. And of course, ever since, I've been in the field of psychology, man.
And that just goes to the point of having these spaces,
yes,
where our brightest minds can share their experience, analysis, research, and the hidden impact of the work that you do. And I tell people all the time, you really never know who's watching and who you influence. In the same way that you are influenced by others, and it helps to shape your trajectory. When you get into these spaces, you may do the same thing for others, which is why the integrity of what you do is always important. Because you're influencing young minds. And so we know that Dr. Umar, I live in Philly now, and so that's where he's from. He has that gift of gab, but psychologists have this way of looking at the human experience and looking for, in essence, causes that shape and modify behavior. And
I want to add something.
Go ahead.
I was debating in my mind before I came on if I was going to bring it up or not, but now that we over here, I wanted to say in my beginning, when I gave you your props, right? A lot of guys in the community that we kind of frown on at this point for different various reasons. You guys are the reason some of us even went to college. You guys are the reason some of us doing what we're doing now. So to see those guys get fried right now, it's painful, bro. Like, whenever I give my Umar Johnson story, I'm always telling that story. it hurts in hindsight. It's like saying that. Now, it's a bad comparison. I ain't gonna say it, but like I'm just saying. I'm
I,
just saying that
I
you
understand.
gotta be able to separate the person from the information. Because guess what? My whole time being in those classrooms, being at those school board meetings,
Mm-hmm.
being at those court places, Dr. Umar Johnson book that he wrote, like the Psycho Holocaust against the Black Boy, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Everything he said in that book, I saw it in real time. So
Mm.
I don't care what you feel about him emotionally. Everything he said in that book, I've seen it with my clients.
Mm.
And that's just
And
what it is.
we don't doubt that he's a brilliant brother, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think and not to isolate him or just
Right.
speak on him.
Exactly.
It's just
I'm
in
not,
general
yeah.
that, you know, and sometimes we do this to a fault in the sense that, you know, one, we can't separate the information from the person. We can't
Right.
separate the
Yeah.
message from the messenger. So, you know, this is what keeps certain people from not listening to a Farrakhan
Yeah.
or even someone of European descent because of the shell in which they're housed and
Yeah.
their overall, you know, beliefs, instead of being able to isolate, you know,
I
and
mean,
in context the particular message. But at the same time, you know, we want, you know, the individual who's coming with the information to at least live up
yeah.
to most of what, you know, it is that they are recommending for
It's
us to
true.
do and behave.
Yeah.
And so when we see something contrary to that, then we question. So I can see where it is
And let me say
internal
something. Let me
with
say something for the family right quick, right? This morning, I was playing Dr. Michael Eric Dyson audio book of Jay-Z. And there's a certain chapter in there, he breaking down some of MLK's discretions, some
Mhm.
of Ralph Abernathy things he had going on. You can name, we can go down a list of who you want to name that's quote unquote great. Nobody's without flaw.
Mhm.
So if we just gonna cancel everybody, like who you got left?
Exactly.
Who you gonna learn from? If we just gonna be just canceling
Yeah.
because there's still something to be taken from these people.
Exactly. And this is why, like, for myself personally, over the years, I I have emphasized more, one, to evaluate the content and the message itself, and to not be distracted by the messenger. And this just goes into research methods and the like, because you can learn from anywhere and from everything. And so we just got to be honest with ourselves and to you know, be able to properly evaluate the content of the information to see if it is useful, you know, for us in our lives at the time. And so where I was getting at is this the you know, some of our best articulators of our experience in the African American uh, educational sphere have all been psychologists. And when you mention a few of them, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Asa Hilliard, you know, Francis Quest Wesling,
Ain't nobles, man.
Marimba Ani is more so anthropology, but it's still kind of in the same sphere, just on a cultural level in terms of the psychology of a people.
Yeah.
And and so this leads me now to the question of your your speaking engagements, you know,
Okay.
especially with, you know, young people, and then we'll get into the jail situation, like how we got there
Yeah.
and or whatnot. So when, you know, because a lot of your stuff has to deal with leadership. You know, is
Yeah.
this the motivating? Is this what you mainly talk about, or what are the range of topics that you talk about with?
Yeah. Like you said in the beginning, I cover a lot of topics
Uh-huh,
because my time being a counselor for years, I'm with kids from 4 years old to adults in their 40s. And I'm
uh-huh,
seeing some of the common things that's hanging up a large amount of people. So I'm
mm,
trying to write books that address overlapping things that I'm seeing that's common themes, right? And
Mhm.
all of these books are meant to be workbooks. They're meant to be books to use for homeschooling material, after school programs, church programs, jail programs. So I have questions built into the book to be used as a material, right? And I'm having it in my mind. I'm trying to address the non-reader because a lot of us in the space we privileged. A lot of us love reading books. I'm trying to write to a person that don't normally read books. That's
Mhm.
why they're not big books. I don't write big, large books because I want to get to that person that's I got a short amount of time to catch them and give them a gem, give them a jewel, right? So
Mhm.
I'm trying to always think about the teenage demographic, young adults. Uh, I try to be as general as I can with the age groups, so that way it don't go over nobody's head. It's not no big words. It's not that it's over, it's not over scientific with it. I try to make it to where that anybody can read it and get something. That's what I'm writing to when I'm trying to write these books.
The exact opposite of me. I need all the biggest words possible.
I know you.
I
I got
need
two books.
300 plus pages. Uh,
Yeah. But
nah.
let's go into this, right? So I'm a self-published author, right?
Uh,
So for those that don't know in the room, on the business side of the house, how much does it cost for me to print one 300-page book?
mhm.
And then how much I got to charge you to make a profit on it? It's not as profitable. Or I got to charge you 30, 40, 50 bucks. And then you feel like, man, Sean trying to play us. He's trying to get rich off of us, charging 40 bucks. Who you think he is charging 40 bucks for a book? He ain't no Toni Morrison. He ain't no Ibram X Kendi. How you gonna charge 40? Right? So I try to write smaller books to make it more affordable for the general public, and it's more affordable for me as a producer to keep on, doing what I'm doing on my side.
Indeed. Nah, I was just playing. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm
e-
giving the business side of it.
indeed, and people, that's a whole nother conversation about, we got the anatomy of a book, but
Yeah,
there's a process in the book development that people don't understand, that there's cost. So let's go to the business side of this in
yeah,
terms of, well, it depends on what type of book you're doing. So
yeah.
for a number of what you're doing is based on experience and the like. But if you're doing like a pure research text,
I mean, well, yeah,
think about how many books you have to purchase.
yes,
And then regardless if it's a research text or any other type of text, the
yeah.
time that it takes to study and or experience and analyze and repackage it in a place, like the time aspect you can't really quantify,
Yeah.
but at least on the references in the back of the book, you can definitely quantify. And that $20 to $40 for the book is nothing in compared to the thousands
I
that it
wanna
took to research to make the book. You
I wanna
know,
say two things, right?
Go
So two things. The first thing is, and we gotta all be mindful of this in these spaces. Some
Mhm.
of us have degrees and whatnot like that, right? A lot of people indirectly, like they're writing to their peers.
Yeah,
Like you read a PhD book, you can tell like he's not talking to me. He's writing the book to impress his PhD homeboys. I'm writing books to guys that probably are high school dropouts.
mm,
It's a whole different demographic I'm trying to reach. So
yeah,
for me to write something with a bunch of spectacular words in it, just because I can, is like that's not gonna sell. You know what I'm saying? And then the second thing I was gonna say is I'll just leave it at that for right now. You keep it going. I'll leave
yeah.
it at that.
It,
Oh, I
it,
know what it was. I know what it was. I know what it was. I know what it was. So you ever read some of Elijah Muhammad books, and in the first couple pages when you open the cover, it will say this book was a speech on such and such a date, and it's transcribed X, Y, and Z. I'm like, wow. When I realized that, like, wait a minute, Elijah Muhammad didn't sit down and write this book. This was a speech, and they turned it into a book. So my last four books were speeches that I did previous. I had the notes, the PowerPoint slides, the references, whatever. and I transformed them into books.
Amos Wilson used to do that. A lot of his texts are
Naeem Osborne, a
yeah,
lot of stuff.
they're just speeches. But even then they'll write a lot of it out, and or it'd be a major outline, and then it'll be further transcribed into the text. But we
Yeah,
also got to keep in mind the range and diversity of our people, and so you have it in the need to make content for individual types of demographics. And so you have those texts for those who may not necessarily like to read too much.
yeah,
And so you have to construct your book in a certain way. But
yeah.
if you are writing to people in the academy, well, there's a
Oh,
reason for that,
yeah, that's
because
different.
it's not necessarily to, I wouldn't use the word impress, but to further the field, because
Yeah,
we got to look at this in a sense of we're leading someone to a certain space.
yeah,
So a brother Sean may lead someone and inspire someone to get on a track that
yeah.
ultimately that book would be relevant to them. And
That's
so
right.
we need is everyone in these particular spaces, because we're all working together
Right.
ultimately to
Now,
develop a certain type of human being. you
let me
know
tell you, bro, my goal ultimately,
uh-huh.
I love those 500-page books with the big old thick foot, like you do the footnotes. I love those and all the references and the bibliography. My goal is to make one of those, but
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't come out in the beginning with one of those. It's first of all, you got to get to know me. You got to get to trust me. You got to get a flavor in your mouth for me. Then after your palate get used to that, now I can go bring over here and do something more, right? So in the beginning, like Malcolm X said, man, make it plain. So my first 6 books, I've been making it plain until we graduate. That's my particular trajectory.
No, that is, and I tell people that all the time. So, like, I have a mixed range of text, and so, from very small, and then very academic to I got a book of poetry. Like my first book was a book of poetry, and the like. It just,
Yeah,
it just,
yeah, yeah.
just, we got to be diverse in that sense. And so, but at the end of the day, what I always encourage people is to understand who your audience is and what problem that you're trying to solve, and understanding the nature of what problem that it is that you're trying to solve, and the audience for what that is for, that will direct you on how you're going to approach
You,
that conversation in the
you know,
text.
it feels good to me when a mother is playing my audio book while she's doing something, and she says, "Sean, my 10-year-old daughter was in the kitchen and she heard something you said, and she got it. She caught on to it." I feel good getting that message. Like that's what it's all about for me. Whenever that happens, I did my job. In my opinion.
Indeed. So, speaking of those messages, let's go through a number of the text.
Okay.
So we have this one text that was, I believe, published in 2017. What's your kick? The guide
Yes, my
to
favorite.
unlocking your passion.
Yes, sir.
What is the book about, and what
Okay.
was the motivation, and who are we talking to? In
Okay. So for what's your kick? That title came from an old Bruce Lee quote, right? I love martial arts. My first love is martial arts. And Bruce Lee said, "I don't feel the man that practiced 10,000 kicks. I feel the man that practiced one kick 10,000 times." So for me, that one quote spoke to how much a person practiced their craft and honed it and really went deep with that thing. And I feel like in this generation we live at now, where everything is do it yourself, right? People want to be so like all over the place. You the DJ man, and you make t-shirts, and you the videographer for the wedding, and you do cakes, and you write books, and you're doing 15 things, but you're not great at any one of them. So I feel like in the old days you had a blacksmith. probably was a family of blacksmiths. Like you had a whole apprenticeship. You had a whole 10,000 hours to master your craft to get that stamp of a blacksmith. You ain't just all of a sudden become a blacksmith. So what's your kick is about a person finding their passion, finding what they're innately good at, finding what they love more than anything. Then how you go about growing it, cultivating it, finding a mentor, overcoming obstacles, uh, finding motivation, things like that. So that one book is about those things. Because I felt like we didn't mention my personal training background. I don't think I
Okay.
did 15 years of personal training too. So between my training clients and my psychology clients, I'm thinking about the most happy people that I knew. They knew what their thing was. They knew what they hung their hat on. They were confident in it. And the people that I found the most that was like a wandering possibility, right? Um, they seemed to be just lost, like just floating. They had skills, they were talented, they were intelligent. They just didn't know what they wanted to nail down and do. So I felt like writing this book, I wanted to get a person to really think about, if you're an adult reading the book, what did I do as a kid that I loved so much before I became a parent? What did I love doing before I had to pay the mortgage and the car note? Now I got to go on somebody's job just to pay a bill. What did I love doing in my free time?
Mm-hmm.
What did I get complimented on as a kid? Did I draw? Was I good with words? Was I playing an instrument? Like what was it that you put down to
Mm-hmm.
pick it back up again? Or you can go and learn some new skills. Because some people now they're retiring, but they're still young. It's a whole new world for them. Like my mom is a good example. Your backside of your life, what are you going to do? You've been 40 years or whatever teaching. It's all you've done. And now it's like, all right, I got these years ahead of me. What am I going to do? So
Mm-hmm.
either side of the spectrum, it covers the whole spectrum. Because people
So,
always say, what's the best age demographic? I would say I wrote it universal for a teenager,
mhm.
older person, I mean, whatever.
So if I'm one of those individuals, I haven't quite found my niche. What are some things that I can do to, more purposely
Right.
discover or go through the process of discovering what my passion is, or that I may have a passion for? Like what are some things that I can do
Well,
to discover that?
yeah, in the book, I talk a lot about mentorship and the importance in mentorship, the power of having somebody that's like the brother said earlier, somebody like an OG, somebody in your life you can talk to. So whenever you think to yourself, for an example, I want to be a photographer, right? I probably should find an experienced veteran photographer to kind of sort of give me the actual ins and outs of what that's like. Because a lot of times we think we want to do something, we have no idea what it entails to actually day to day do it. It
Mhm.
might not be what you actually want when you find out. But if I have a mentor in my life that's a whole different field, they can give me good advice still, but not the the nuanced advice I need to really, really know and wean out. Is it really photography, or do I just think I like the camera like that? Maybe I don't. And maybe
Mhm.
it's something else under that umbrella I can go and do, right? So the mentorship piece is a real, real big piece in it for me, and a lot of soul searching what it really, really is, man.
Mhm.
Because only you know what you really, really love, what you really like, what you lay in the bed thinking about all night. And you can't wait to go and do it the next day. Like, what is that for you? Only you can answer that question for yourself. You know what I'm saying?
For me, it's talking ish on the internet.
And
Uh,
there's a
all
space and money for that, right? We see guys getting very lucrative doing that, right? Very
Indeed.
lucrative.
So we know that um, you know passion drives us, to an end. But how important is just being open to new things
Very
in that
important.
process,
Very important.
and not
Very
necessarily being so rigid in terms of wanting to experience things that you, because if you aren't necessarily or even if you have discovered, you know, a primary passion of yours, if you are kind of closed-minded, you know, how will you not discover new passions?
Now I'm gonna do a shameless plug to my third book,
All right.
Expanding Your Vision, right? Because the expanding your vision is about what you say, it's about expanding yourself. It's about getting new experiences, being in new environments, being around new groups of people. Because when you expand yourself, when you get more exposure, you get more expansion. That's what I want to say. More exposure leads to more expansion. You gotta go to different cities, be around different kinds of people, even different food. Like the most simple thing. I'm 40 years old. I don't want date myself, but like I've done 40 years of this, so I make a conscious effort. I try to make myself try different food. I make myself go to different places. Make myself talk to people I would never normally talk to. I make myself do it because I know I might find something along that trail.
Indeed. And so, you know, this we spoke about leadership earlier.
Yeah.
And you also have a text that was released in 2020, The 5 Laws of Leadership.
That's right.
Can you tell us about that text?
Okay.
And what are some of the laws? Like, give us the first 2 laws that you have when concerned about leadership.
Okay. Got you. So first of all, like I said earlier, a lot of my takes came from previous speeches I've done, right? So there's a company here in Louisiana called New Vision Leadership. This is years ago. And they called me to come in and talk to their teenagers about leadership. So of course I sat down, got in the lab, and I crafted my speech to be the 5 laws because of course I don't want to speak for 2 or 3 hours at a time to some kids. I try to be to the point, poignant, so I want to have 5 points. That's how I became the 5 laws, right? And so it's a speech I did for these kids, trying to talk to them about you can't be scared to be a trendsetter. You can't be scared to go against the grain. You can't be scared to go first because you have that natural thing inside of you when you're a teenager. You want to do what everybody else do. You don't want to be different. You don't want to get frowned at, looked at crazy, pointed at, talked too crazy. But then I showed them some of the greatest leaders that we had got laughed at. So before MLK died, did a whole poll. He wasn't the most liked guy before he got assassinated. But after the fact, we got MLK Street, we got shirts, we got whatever. But in real time, it wasn't like that for him. Even Brother Malcolm. We can name a lot of guys that wasn't highly liked as they are after the fact in real time. So I'm trying to tell them how leadership, is a tough choice to be a leader. And also speak about being a leader with the right intentions. Back to our conversation we had earlier about certain people in the community. Why are you becoming a leader? What's your intent when you come into the space to be a leader and take that mantle? You're leading us to what? To what end? Why are you doing this? What's your intentions on doing this? Some folks are leaders for, I call it, don't be a leader for likes. They want that like button. They want that click. They want that popularity and the fame and the shares and you came just for that.
Indeed. Like leadership, it is something that is, heavily sought after, but people really don't realize the burden that any type of leadership position holds. And you have to train. Yes. And to a certain extent, you can't train for it, but I think this is where psychology, even if you don't become a psychologist or a counselor, some reading in it is beneficial because you have to understand the people whom you're leading, their experiences and the like, and what motivates people so that you know how to approach the different types of people who you're going to interact with.
Yeah.
And so a second law or thing.
Yeah. So I had one about take the initiative, and I call it, the whole Jesus song, go get her, right? I kind of use that. I say, take the initiative, go get her, go get her. And I'm telling the young people about don't wait for people to tell you to do something. If you see something in your community that needs to be fixed, don't complain about where the mayor not doing this and the city councilman not doing that and so not doing. If it's something within your means, take the initiative. You go and do it. You go and start whatever the thing is. You go in and get some guys together and round up. You go take on things in the community, with the youth or whatever it might look like. Don't wait for somebody to ask you to do things.
One of my favorite people to listen to is David Goggins.
Yes, I love him. I love
Is
him.
former Navy SEAL who
Yes.
does a lot of, he's broken a lot of records. He's been involved in many different branches of the military.
Yeah.
And he's become to be well known in the world because of his motivate or his raw, unique way of motivation.
Very unique.
Outside of that,
Yeah.
one of his approaches to that process is to understand your limitations and how to move beyond that through physical training. And so with you being in also the physical training space, how is it related in terms of working out,
Yeah.
eating healthy and the like,
Yeah.
and one's ability to achieve goals outside of physical training and leadership? Are
Well,
they connected in any way? What has been your experience?
very much, right? So in a lot of my publications, I love, like all the great teachers, I love a lot of analogies and parallels and things that people can understand, right? So once again, even if you've never played sports before, you probably have sat and watched a football game or a basketball game, or you've seen certain physical feats. So I use those physical things to make a point in our everyday life that we can use on the job, with your family, your personal life, because adversity is adversity. Now, whenever you put yourself in these physical challenging spaces, your body, well, your mind wants to always quit before your body, most times. Your body's saying like, nah, man, it's cold outside. Nah, it's hot outside. I went to bed late last night. Like all these excuses, your mind check out like fast. But you'll be surprised what your body could literally push past and do if you train yourself that way. But after you do that for a certain amount of time, when I'm on my job, getting the task, not many things at my job go compared to how I train myself. So it don't seem as difficult to me. Like that's it. Okay. Then whenever adversity come at the job, I faced adversity on a basketball court or in my training or running a marathon or something. I faced injuries or whatever it might be, and I've overcome them. So I know in my personal life, my car break down, right? Or something at the house happens, something with my family happens. I had the tenacity to get through it and overcome it because I've seen myself physically do some crazy things. Yeah.
Indeed.
It has to be cultivated. It's a skill to be cultivated. So David Goggins always talking about hardening yourself. That's his metaphor. To harden yourself. Put yourself in challenging situations to be able to face life things. And in most sports, practice harder than the game. So if I practice putting myself in these adverse situations, my everyday life is mostly easy compared to what I do to myself.
Indeed. And speaking of crazy things, want y'all to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and do other crazy things like share this video with friends and colleagues, so that we can get this name out in a broader capacity. And so we talked about a few of his books: The Five Laws of Leadership, What's Your Kick, and we're going to go to the butterfly effect.
I wanted to add one more thing, if I may, Brother Asar.
All right, go ahead.
Just real small tidbit. On Instagram, a lot of times, a lot of my friends are fellow scholars, writers, and things like that. But these are more sedentary skill sets. You just sit down reading, or you writing, whatever. But I try to tell my friends, you'll be amazed how much physical activity helps your writing ability. How much, even a brisk walk, nothing crazy, a brisk walk, something you can do, even 20 minutes of that before you go to read, study, before you go to write, could really boost you to another level. So I wanted to give that tidbit right quick. It's not spoken of enough in the community, physical aspect.
Here's a brief story. There was a professor out of Louisiana by the name of Dr. Troy Allen, and he wrote a text on the ancient Egyptian family, and he was a student of Dr. Teofilo Benga. Okay. And what people don't know about Dr. Teofilo Benga is that he used to box.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, he used to box, and he used to run and train, and even in his elder age. And so Dr. Troy Allen is the one who, would, when he was in Philadelphia, would help him train. And so while he was working on his PhD, he went to the Congo where Dr. Obenga was, and there was a coup that happened, and so, but luckily for Dr. Troy Allen, he didn't know this was coming or whatnot, but he just had to leave early, so he left back to the States. And then Dr. Obenga's family had to go somewhere, so they were gone. But like the very next day is when the coup happened. And so with him being in a government position, he was a target. And so, but even as an elder, he ran from the Democratic Republic of Congo to Cameroon, through the forest. And it was because of that training and learning from Dr. Troy Allen that he was able to do that. So even, I'm not saying that you would find yourself in such an extreme, but we can see the quality of work that he does in this one space, and being involved in physical activities as well, and even how it helped him, escape a coup.
You might not have to run through the Congo, but we see how crazy this world is right now, how all of a sudden things happen. I'm here in Louisiana. We have hurricanes, we have floods. Just 2 days ago in New Orleans, if you see on the news, big tornadoes coming through, tearing up stuff. So like sometimes it get real. You might have to go and take your family members and carry them somewhere, or carry some supplies, cut some actual trees and carry them to the street. I feel good that I can physically do that if it calls for it, So you want to be able to take care of yourself, because life is real. We see it every day on YouTube and everything, these crazy attack videos, people getting attacked on subways, and just going to the grocery store, somebody getting attacked. You want to be able to take care of yourself, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. And outside of that there's benefits. Like if you love what you do, or you found your passion, of course, after reading Brother Sean's book, you want to extend your life and make the quality of your life in terms of your physical health better, so that you can enjoy and do that for as long as humanly possible, and discover new things. So there's many ways in which we can look at this. But I mentioned the text, The Butterfly Effect, also came out in 2020. Let us know, and I heard the audio for this. But let us know what the concept is in terms of the butterfly effect. And
the butterfly effect.
Go ahead.
Yeah. 2 questions. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
The butterfly effect is very simple. Once again, this is a speech I did maybe 6-7 years ago, and it's all about the power of transformation. We all know probably Malcolm X being one of the greatest transformation stories our community's probably ever seen, is the Malcolm X story. And it's all about, like, the first chapter is called Starting Out Ugly. Starting out ugly, because most people don't want to admit where they are right now, currently in their life, financially, relationships, physical, you name an aspect of life. People don't want to admit, like, look, this is what's going on with me. But in the first chapter, I emphasize you can't get that proper help you need to get better if you don't first admit where you are, and then secondly, be willing to be open to somebody to help you. If I want financial help, but I don't want to show my income statements and my expenses and my taxes, and if I don't want to show the guru that, how they going to help me get on a better financial track if I don't want to expose those ugly parts of my financial life? So that first chapter is about that.
Indeed. And so it says he's never heard. Yep. Matter of fact, I heard that from him himself. I only met Dr. Troy Allen one time, and that was at a Seanathan Diop conference. And matter of fact, if you find a photo of him online, it's probably only going to be 2 photos that you will find, and I'm the one who took the second photo, of Dr. Allen. And so, this is why it's important to build these relationships with people and to go to conferences and meet folks, because you'll get information that ain't in the books that, is just sometimes just a good bit of history.
And that mouth to ear. That mouth to ear, you know what I mean? You got to get that.
So, so we have this text.
Yeah, the butterfly.
Well, we have this other text, The Anatomy of a Book.
Yes, my last one, my last book.
So, at first when I read the title, I'm thinking that, you're structuring how to write and put together a book, but that's not what that is. Well, so let us know what you mean by the anatomy of the book and the motivation behind that.
Yeah, let's do it. So, first of all, we all know a lot of people are not like big readers. That's the first thing. But once again, in this community, we privileged. A lot of us here are avid readers. That's the common trend, right? But I even realized within my reader friends, not many people read the introduction, forward, prologue, epilogue, index, bibliography, footnote. We can go on and on about different parts of a book that so many people skip over. So the book, 300 pages, but you skip all of that. You really only read maybe 150 pages of this whole text. Because once in a scholarly book, like your books, for example, in a scholarly book, the intro alone might be 40, 50 pages. That's just intro.
Exactly.
Like them old Dr. Clark speeches, he'll talk for an hour and a half long, and then he'll finally say, all right, now to the main point. You were like, man, what the main point? He did an hour and a half just talking.
Exactly.
But we had that generation where we're used to that long form of presenting and writing. So anyway, in a lot of our scholarly texts, if you're skipping the prologue and the forward and all of that, you're missing so much good stuff.
Yeah.
You're missing it. So for me, when I'm reading certain Dr. Ivan Van Sertima books, I'm like, wait a minute. Wanoku Rashidi did the forward. Oh, Dr. Clark did the, and then Dr. Ben did the. So the rabbit hole started going like that for me, because it's like I'm reading this one man's book, but by reading all these other parts, it's like, who is this guy? And I go find a Wanoku Rashidi book, and he got Dr. Charles Fitch, or Chancellor Williams, or whoever he might have edited the book or something. Like, who's Chancellor Williams? You go down that rabbit hole, but you see how that happened for reading the whole text. So unless you're reading the whole text, I heard somebody say you haven't read the text. I've heard that before.
Indeed.
I've heard that
Matter
before.
of fact, Jehudi made this comment: the most important part of any book is the sources. And I remember one of my first books that I wrote. I went back. Usually, what I always do is I give a copy to the African American Studies Department or program at the University of Houston. And so, at the time of this was the second book. I gave a copy to Dr. Conyers to put into the library, and the first thing that he does, he opens the book, flips it, and goes straight to the sources.
Yes.
Doesn't read the table of contents, doesn't read the intro. The first thing that he does is goes to the sources. He's looking and flipping. He's like, you need more journal articles.
Damn. And look,
the
only man I've seen do that, like as far as on video, Dr. Greg Carr. I watch him every weekend, Dr. Greg Carr. He'll take a book off the shelf and go straight to the index.
Yeah.
He's like, if they're not mentioning certain names in this book is not going to be well done on this particular topic.
Mm-hmm.
From the index. I'm like, that's impressive, man. That's some scholarship to know the index like that.
Yeah. And it helped me to, because you got to remember, like, at this time, even though I've taken Africana Studies courses and I'm in that space, I'm a technology person. So, the ins and outs of how to write a book and, research methods and making sure that you include this and this and this wasn't refined then, in the mid 2000s at this particular time. So, and when he says that, and remember, like, this guy, and he passed, in 2020 at the beginning of the year. And when I would go into his office, like, he would come in the morning, because he was the head of the program. He would come in the morning, say hi to the secretaries, have a few, internal department meetings if need be, say hi to a couple of students, do some conferencing there. And then by like 1 o'clock, he's like, I'm out. But he wouldn't leave necessarily. He would just lock his door, or he would go to another room. He was working on another book. He wrote or edited 50 plus books. And like, he would be studious. Like, I'll be sitting in his office and we'll be chatting. He'll have his next book printed out or printing off the printer so that he can review it and check it. So he would always tell me about, like the importance of information and research methods and all this other kind of stuff. So my studiousness in part comes from having that relationship with him. But he was an avid reader, just reading all the time. Go ahead.
Back to the power of this community we're talking about, our community. No matter how people feel about it right now, give or take. A lot of us take our personal studying more than actual college. Like, I was already in the community when I started college. It was easy for me. College was, compared to my personal studying, like we're talking about, and what my mentor had me doing to my personal studying, to do a college paper, you want 3 sources? You want 150? You want 150? You want 1,500 words? You want 3 sources? Cover page, reference page? That's nothing. The night of.
Exactly.
Straight A's, like, because our scholarship that we learned in this community was so tight, and certain brothers doing all these when they had all the debates and everything going on, all the debates and all that, that made me tighten up my personal scholarship. Like, wow, that brother know all of that. That brother tight. Like, certain guys made me dig into those sources and bibliographies. Guys like yourself. Back to that. I wanted to tell you something on this interview. You and Dr. Wesley Muhammad back in the day, right? You guys going back and forth via text was like monumental to me. Not no words and videos and Instagram back and forth. Y'all boys actually wrote text. If you've never written a book before, that process, these boys took the time. I'm gonna write a whole text to address you. That was like Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, right? That was like Mike Du Bois and Garvey. Like y'all gonna write text to each other? Like that was. I just wanted to say it on camera. Like that was really impressive to me, and I admired that scholarship.
Appreciate it. Yeah, that's what we do. I'm not one for, I grew up in a different era. So, this internet beef age.
Yeah.
That
On the video
I'm not
was
cutting that cloth.
yeah.
I talk, yes, but it's all in fun and stuff like that. But anything, you don't see me in any kind of serious beefs or whatnot. But to LA, Oklahoma, yes. So Dr. Troy Allen, he was the professor, at LSU. And so, if you ever see a photo of him, he's kind of light skinned, curly hair. He's probably popular in the 90s.
I want to add one little tidbit. There's an article I read a couple days ago. I think it's in the Atlantic. It might be the Atlantic Press. It's about the importance of an index. It was a very, very good article on the index of a book. I think it's on the Atlantic. You can check that out when you get a chance, people.
All right. Yeah, that's very important because of course you want especially if you're, well, I've seen, even with really kind of small text, regardless, there are key concepts that you want your reader to revisit, or that you want to be able to find, after reading the text or something like this, a quick jump. So your index allows, for the reader to find those keywords and jump right back into the space and find that important information that they find valuable. And so we got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
And so I want to open up to the listening audience for any kind of specific questions that you have for him. But in the meantime, because there's going to be a slight lag by the time they get the information, how can we find you, to learn more and give us your podcast?
Yes.
He has a podcast as well, that information.
So Instagram is my main platform the past 2 years. Instagram, my name is Seanathan Polidor. You'll see my name here in the space I saw when he posted it. My whole name, Seanathan Polidor. Easy to find. Come and follow me. I'm always posting videos like 3 or 4 times a week. I'm always having fellow authors I'm interviewing or different book influencers I'm interviewing. The sister Amani Perry, best-selling author, she has a book called South to America, just came out recently, interviewing her in May. And you go down my timeline going back at some very phenomenal authors on my platform. Also Facebook, same thing. My name, Seanathan Polidor. Find me on Facebook. And you can email me at seanpolidor@gmail.com. Get any books from me directly, autographed books, and I have 3 audio books as well to get direct from me.
Indeed. And what I'm going to do is take that information and have it in the description.
Okay.
Those who, are coming back, you don't have to kind of scroll and figure out when he said what he said.
Those that love Kindle downloads, my last 4 books are in Kindle for download. Very affordable price. Not trying to break nobody bank. And you order from me directly, always throw in additional content. So you come and get 1 book, I'm gonna give you audio book. I'm gonna give you a PDF download. Always try to sweeten the pot, if I can.
Indeed. And so, let's off topic. Louisiana.
Yeah.
how was the space growing up? See, my people's is from primarily two spaces, Opelousas
Okay,
and New
okay.
Orleans.
Appaloosas, okay,
Yeah. So
okay.
if my dad wouldn't have gotten a job in Houston, I would have probably grew up in New Orleans. So I lived there when I was, young. I was born in Florida, though. My dad was in the Navy. Um, but after a certain age, we moved to Houston, and then the rest is history. But how does people don't understand like Louisiana is culture. Like people hear the accents and stuff like this, but like it's a very unique place, and I'm always feel at home when I go back. Um, with the people, but where you grew up, just kind of paint us a picture of the space and the people and the foods and the relationships and how all of that shapes the Sean P that we know
Well,
today.
once again, I'm 40, right? So being a child of the 80s, child of the 90s, the golden era, if you will, most of us. Um, it was that real community concept where my whole street I lived on, every single person on that street felt like, and they could discipline you, parent you. You know, it was mostly the older people on the street. They all sat on the porch every day, watching the cars going by. They always were privy to everything going on before they had texting and social media. They just knew all that going on was going on in the community. In the household I grew up in, had my grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, my aunt, and her three kids. We were all in one home together, right? A real community upbringing.
Yeah.
But we always had 10 to 15 kids over at our house all the time. Like our house was the safe haven. A lot of those kids growing up, their moms were on drugs, it was different poverty situations, but it's funny, I learned those details in adulthood. Whenever we were kids growing up, it's like I like Nintendo, you like Nintendo, come to the crib.
Yeah.
And they would stay for weeks at a time. But for me, it wasn't abnormal. Did mama not come and check on them? They ain't getting no money dropped off. My grandmother just making big old batches of chicken and big old pitchers of Kool-Aid, and we all just for weeks on there playing video games, playing basketball, of course. The time whenever the kids did play outside, we got like 15, 20 of us riding bicycles all across the town playing ball. And it was a real community situation, man. You know.
Yeah, it reminds me because my we stayed in my grandmother stayed in the lower ninth ward, and so like the houses there, like we had like blocks of this, not everyone but our relatives stayed in the area, and it was just as you said, it was kids come outside, we would go down, and whoever's mom was cooking or something at the time, we would eat
Yeah.
there, and they were just as invited, and it'd be pots, and Sundays it was as long, cooking days. It was a real kind of village sense. We would take our, we get a few dollars. There was always a penny lady candy. I mean, a penny candy lady.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood, we would go get it like
In
100
the cool cup, the cold cup.
and
Yeah,
all that, the cool cups,
cold
all
cup.
that in that
Yeah,
in that particular
yeah,
space.
yeah,
And I say that because like I didn't know it then, but I see it now. Like you still had those African cultural elements
yeah.
still strong there, and people don't realize like with everything that you describe is traditional village life.
Yes.
In the back on the continent.
I want to say something real quick, right?
Uh-huh.
So as far as culture differences on the job, it's gotten me in trouble because, like in the military, I was overseas,
Yeah.
and my grandmother on my dad's side passed. But in
Hmm.
the military, like most jobs, you can only go home on leave if it's your mother, father, brother, sister, like
Yeah.
direct. They don't understand in our culture. My aunt is like a mama to me. My grandmother lived with us till she died. Like my cousins are like siblings.
Yeah.
You gonna tell me if my cousin was to pass, I can't go to my cousin's funeral because it's not my brother or my sister. They don't understand our family dynamics in our communities.
Fukiao talks about that in I don't know if it's in African Cosmology, the Bantu Congo, or in this text called Mbongi. But he talks about that, how that was difficult at the jobs when so many fathered, like a guy would have like 3 or 4 fathers that died in a year. And the colonial officers is like, you didn't your father just die, you know, several months ago?
Yeah.
Like, yes, but this is also my father. You know, that it could be an uncle or just, you know, someone just in the community. But we have a few questions here, so I'm gonna try to get through these.
I want to ask you one question too before we leave. It's important.
Zane Montego asks, "What's your method to intake information?"
Wow. I mean, I'm a intake information. My main thing. I mean, I'm an avid reader. Like from the moment I get up in the morning until I go. I'm a late person, right? I go to bed at 3 and 4 in the morning. Until I close my eyes, I never go to bed without reading something. I mean, for years. I don't know when I started this. I can't go to bed unless something's wrong with me. I don't go to bed without reading something. And lately, I'm so busy, I've been digesting more audio books. I mentioned that earlier. I've been playing a lot more audio books. So I advise the family listening, your local library has an audio database for free. And you can find a lot of books more than you think in audio version. While you driving, while you cooking, while you doing whatever, I'm taking in the audio.
Indeed.
So pretty much 24/7, I'm being inundated with something.
Exactly. And so Jatun B asks, what do you think about Gary Chambers for Senate?
I was talking about him yesterday. He got that killer Mike energy. You know what I'm saying? I love his energy. I'm not really a political person normally, but I love the way that he's doing politics. He's definitely an outlier. He is a disruptor, shaking up things. But unfortunately, I don't really believe he's going to win in that sense. But I love to see it. I love it. I love it.
All righty. And thank you, Sister Ladosha, for joining us. And Jehuti Ma'at asks, who or what was your biggest motivation in choosing your career path?
I mean, as I said in the top, if somebody missed it, I'm gonna get fried for it in 2022. But Dr. Umar Johnson was that dude for me. Like the way he approached the community and psychology in these schools, and the way that they're miseducating our youth, the way that they are misdiagnosing kids, the way they are putting kids in special education that shouldn't be in special education. When it comes to charter schools, private schools, like, a lot of things he said was golden. Unfortunately, it just didn't age well. Whenever Sean get that question in 2022, I gotta decide to myself, okay, what I want to say. Am I going to say Dr. Naeem Akbar and lie? Or do I really want to say Dr. Umar Johnson?
Sure. For me, it was Wu-Tang Clan. But Wu-Tang Clan information, that whole 5% stuff ain't aged well in terms of scholarship. But you know, your spark is your spark. They're there to just plant seeds. Yeah.
I remember Dr. Kaba called it an entry point. My entry point was that. Now I haven't heard Dr. Umar Johnson's video in probably almost 10 years. But in the beginning, that was the beginning, you know. So
indeed.
And then you advance and you grow, right?
All right, we got one last question.
And then I got a question.
All righty.
Yeah.
How important is it for Black people to operate on a level of ancestral history, community success, as opposed to personal history, individual success?
Well, in my opinion,
Denison.
Yeah, that's my brother. In my opinion, I got that mindset whenever they say like, until all of us free, like none of us free. I'm in that mindset. I don't have that individualized mindset. I have the mindset, and that's why my whole time going to college, my mentor always put in my head like, Sean, you learning all this stuff to bring it back to our community. You learning all these things about psychology and the kids and development to bring it back to our community, our kids. For those that couldn't afford to go to college for whatever reason they didn't go to college, you bring that back.
Mm.
And like Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, sometimes the most educated of us, they're like the most worthless of us. Because as they climb that ladder, that educational track, they get further and further from their blackness themselves, and they want to assimilate so much with other folks. But I always stay true to our community and us, right? So for every college book I read, I was reading 2 and 3 of our books my whole time in college. For every book they gave me, I'm Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ben, so on and so forth. Every semester. And it's
Yeah.
hard to read outside of your college work when you're in college. I made it a point to do it. Like I'm going to read these books. So to answer the question, I think community over everything, man. Because if you have individual success, like a Michael Jordan, a Oprah Winfrey, a Tyler, we can name ones that have they're billionaires, and that means what to us?
Exactly.
If Kanye West a billionaire, that changed your life like how?
Yeah.
No.
It's funny that individual asked that question because just yesterday, our good brother Akil Parker, who I've interviewed on this channel with All That Math, so shout out to brother Akil out in Philadelphia. He asked me, what was the benefit to the Black community of Thurgood Marshall and Clarence Thomas being placed on the Supreme Court?
Wow.
And my response to him was, personally, I don't expect one person having a position of power to necessarily benefit the Black community as a whole.
Right.
Too many times we are expecting individuals and organizations to have the same impact as governments, and that's not a fair assessment.
It's
That was
not.
my response to that question. So that was interesting.
You know what else too? The power of representation, right? Like the sister right now, going for the Supreme Court. I don't want to say her name incorrectly. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not being disrespectful. I can't say it. Her last name is Brown, I believe, right? Like
Like
my
that.
daughter, my daughter, 14 years old in high
Mm-hmm.
school. For my 14-year-old daughter to see that sister with dreadlocks doing what she's doing up there, it just knocked down some more doors. Now, is that woman individually gonna change the world? Probably not. But for a lot of sisters looking like, wow, you know what? I'm an educated woman. I got degrees. I got ability. And look at the doors that they're putting up.
Mm-hmm.
So her on a macro level, we know on a job, on a micro level, how many of us are overqualified and we can't get certain positions. We can't get certain things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
It's one of those things, like, again, we can't measure individual success and hope that it has the impact that a government and a system would have on a people. So
no.
it's like, no matter how many educational books that we write as individuals, it's not going to have the same impact as if we, lived in a community and paid taxes and created our own educational school system
Uh-huh.
and hired teachers and put together the curriculum and all that. Like, that's a totally different set of things going on that you can't expect an individual, no matter how powerful they are, to have the same impact. But
Was
not
that
saying that their impact is not, there's no impact there. They're influencing, they're making certain things happen,
yeah.
just not on that wide scale.
Was that publishing company name University of Kemet Press?
Yeah, University of Kemet Press.
I love them when they're talking about like we got to do our own research, we do our own archaeology digs, we write the checks, we do all the vetting,
Yeah,
we do all the teaching, like every part of the chain, we're controlling and doing it. When he said that, that's the only that makes sense to me.
exactly. And that's when you know you've made progress. Say that you had a final question for me, and then we'll end it with that. But go ahead.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Do you think the word country is derogatory? The question comes from, there's a video with T.I. and Fabulous. They're talking, and they had a debate about, is the word country, when it's being used towards us from the South, is it derogatory? So I've been asking all my friends, do you think being called, and somebody said, man, I saw you so country, is that derogatory, or is that like?
No, I don't view it as derogatory, because country, some people try to use it in the sense of, and because I've seen that interview.
Okay.
And you know, he made a great point to, like, for example, when you have people up north who try to use the word country in a way that makes it appear as if intellectually and culturally the people are slow.
That's what I'm getting at.
And what they don't understand is that it's slower down here because we actually take time to think about what we do and what we say, versus people up north. Like, you hear people from up north, and especially in places like New York, they're always trying to rush and talk you through things. They're always, you know, full of talking. And we ain't about that talk. In the South, in the country, it's about the relationships, about the quality of the relationships between people. Whereas you don't get that. So that's what I mean. Like, when those aspects of the village life, because that's what you ultimately saying. So it's when people are using country in that sense, I believe that they're trying to use it in the same sense as calling someone pagan, because that's originally what the word pagan meant. It's like there was this, it was pagan versus urban. And what you're trying to say is that, you know, the country folks and the way that they do stuff is not as quote unquote sophisticated and or whatnot. But it's interesting that when everybody want to grow old and tired, no one ever says, I want to retire in New York. I want to retire and go to Jersey. Where they always want to go? To the South, to the country, with a bunch of land. And it is not as crowded, and want to get a farm and have those big outings and whatnot. It's the country life that they desire, you know. And we understand that there's a certain level of sophistication, you know, in terms of having big museums and art places, and you know, there's certain things that come with that. But all in all, I don't find the term in of itself derogatory, you know, and especially, you know, living in a place like Texas, you know, where like we'll be in the middle of the city in Third Ward, and you'll see a gang of brothers, like it'll be, we'll be sitting on slabs and candy paint on one side of the street, and then here come a family on horses.
Yep.
In the middle of the city. There's University of Houston, there's, you know, Texas Southern across the street, there's, you know, all kinds of different things. It's like integrated. So like country in itself is to me more so as a vibe, and that appreciates the quality of human relationships over anything else. And that's when you have to, you know, be able to slow it down. And that's why, you know, country folks, we greet all of our elders when we get in the house.
Everybody.
And you know, we cook big meals. We make sure that you taken care of and fed and the like, whatnot. And we can have a good time, and we can feel comfortable in any space, and we're not afraid to get our hands dirty and fix the cars and do things and the like. So it's you know, it's a badge of honor for me, because at the end of the day, y'all the ones who are trying to seek a quality relationship with nature and the like. and the country folks are already there, and ultimately that's what you desire. So, it's a mixed bag, because some people can use it. It's just like in South Africa, when the word Bantu itself is just a word for human beings in the plural, right? But when certain Europeans came, they try to make it a derogatory term. So in their native language, Bantu or Muntu is just a human being. We refer to each other as Muntu and Bantu, but when they try to use it, it's derogatory. So do I stop using words in my own language that we refer to each other as because somebody is trying to make a euphemism, out of the term? So we have to deal with this with the so-called hoteps.
You're tricky. Yes.
But be the first ones we greet each other talking about peace. Peace, God, peace, this, da, da, da. Oh, the hoteppers. You the one greeting still. Hotep just means peace. It's a greeting.
Yes.
But you're the one still, so you would rather use the slave master's language to say the same thing, but you vilify the African. It shows a level of sickness. But what's your response to it?
I want to ask, because in my travels in the military, I was stationed on both coasts, and I went to school in the Midwest, a good part, been in the country. And then I went to like 23 countries in the Navy, right? U.S. Navy. But most times, I was the only Louisiana guy around. And the minute we started kicking it, somebody gonna say, "Oh, you so country. Oh, look how you." But like T.I. said, it's always, to me, it's derogatory because it almost implies, and you say as if you're intellectually not on point, as if you can't keep up with the times, as if you're not on game. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, it was never cool to call me that. Yeah. I'd be offended personally.
And what's interesting is like the biggest names that you can think of in our community all come from the country and made the biggest impact. So whether you're talking about Malefe Kitty Asante, whether you're talking about Professor James Small, Dr. Clark, Asa Hilliard. Asa Hilliard is from, where I'm from. He in the more countryer part in terms of Galveston, saying Texas or whatnot. You talk about his cousin, which was Dr. Jacob Carruthers.
Yeah, Dr. Jacob,
these are all the country, like all the country folks are the ones that are making the biggest impact in terms of, whether it's Malcolm X, whether it is Martin Luther King Jr., who's the one making the biggest impact, on the world. Like, even speaking of Louisiana and especially New Orleans, coming out of the music game, who's the one who shaped how business is done in the music game, in terms of Master P and Cash Money and the like, change everybody's whole style. And they didn't even think that could be done.
Once again, I was in the military in 2000, right? I graduated in 2000. I was in the military. So back to the CD days, at the CD case, all the homies in the car riding together. Chicago dudes, Texas dudes, all kind of places. We in the car riding. I go to put my Cash Money CD on. Oh man, turn that shit off. I want to hear that. I go to put on my Master P No Limit. Oh man, turn that off. We don't want to. And then some years later, now the whole country, like a lollipop. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
But it was always frowned upon. That's why I brought that up. I know you're a travel guy yourself.
Yeah, man. It's we have these discussions, quite frequently. But yeah, I can see both sides of the conversation. I've witnessed it all. But
I definitely implore the families to go and get Imani Perry's new book, South to America. She got a good chapter in there breaking down a lot of musical roots from the South, the impact on the West Coast, impact on the East Coast. Like,
exactly.
I didn't even realize some of these connections until she made it the way she made it. I was like, I never realized those connections before. Because it was painted to us growing up as East Coast versus West Coast.
But all of them, like, everybody.
It took a while before the South got on the map in a major way.
Like, even with the gangbanging, like when you talk about Tookie Williams and all that, they come from Louisiana, Mississippi. you know, and brought that certain things.
Look, Huey P. Newton, man, the Black Panther Party.
I'm
That's
sorry?
Shreveport. Huey P. Newton, Black Panther Party.
Exactly.
Geronimo Pratt. I met Geronimo one time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's even when we talk about Khalid Muhammad, you know, he's from Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas, you know, and it's something about being in this space of just overt, you know, oppression that brings a different type of quality of person in these particular spaces. But you know, I kind of went over. I didn't want to take too much of your time, but this is a good interview. I appreciate greatly, and so any last closing words that you may have that you want the audience to know.
Man, my main closing words is, like I said, man, just keep on learning, keep on growing, and the people you're going to for scholarship and mentorship, first of all, don't have no kind of hero worship, if you will, but be able to separate the person good from the bad, get the gems and discard, what's not useful. Like Bruce Lee said, man. I just leave it at that.
Be like water, my friend.
Be like water, yeah.
All right. And just a reminder that on tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, that's 1 p.m. Central, I will be interviewing Doctors Prince J.K. Osiri and Paul Easterling. And I want to say Paul is in Louisiana right now as well. Really? And so, we're going to be talking about Osiri Online University, African pedagogy, education, and the need to create our own educational institutes and the benefits of doing such. So that will be on this program, this channel tomorrow, the 25th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, I encourage you to do so that you can get the reminder. Make sure that you hit the bell. And if you want to contact me for any, reason, you have a beautiful cousin that wants to get married soon or something like that, or you just want to send a gang of cookies my way. I like macadamia and white chocolate cookies, for the record. You can hit me up at any one of these social media spaces. And so with that, I wish you all well. Stay safe and see you on tomorrow. Peace.
I see reality breaking down all my fantasies. It would be nice if I at least had one fantasy. That neutrality about to take a terabyte from the American apple pie, better get a slice. It's kinda scary the way that this life is moving on. Marvin's doing backflips inside his grave, what's going on? We have head-on collisions, not seeing another's vision. Maybe that's the reason why some colors fit the description. A lot of relationships need life rafts, sinking ships. I guess you just can't have only one, like potato chips. I would love for you to listen with an open heart, but would you really even hear me if it's torn apart?